This is Eric Beyer of Old Vine, Texas, a new winery tasting room featuring 100% Texas wines from wineries all over the state. We are located in Mansfield, Texas, inside of Ancora Event Center on Broad Street. We have weekly tastings, charcuterie board to enjoy, live music, and a new wine club. Go visit our website at oldvinetexas.com to sign up for our newsletter and learn more. Or you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Old Vine, Texas. We'll see you soon.
Welcome to another episode of We Know Texas Vino. Will's here. He just decided to sit back and let his ladies take things over. So I am Amy Nimick. I'll be your guest host today and for a few more coming episodes as we have an ongoing series about women in the Texas Hill Country wine industry. So I'm a wine writer, a sommelier, a business consultant, a chef, and a winemaker. I think that covers it. I'm also a pilot, but that was in another life. So my first commercial wine was just bottled about 3 weeks ago, and it will be available for purchase later this year, probably by the holidays. So keep an eye out for that. Today, we're coming to you from the Schoolhouse at Burrell. This is a tasting room located on Highway 290 next to All Stop Brewery, and it's a perfect setting for these female-focused segments because all of their wines are produced by women winemakers. So I'm proud to be a small part of helping out here at Burrell, and glad to have all of you guys joining us. I'd also like to give a shout out to Women for Wine Sense. Our local Texas Hill Country chapter has just entered our third year, and we have a new leadership team and more events than ever. So it is not just for women, despite the name, but it is a focus on wine and wine lovers in the Hill Country. So if you're interested, look us up at womenforwinesense.org, and you can get more information and see what events we have coming up. So I'm thrilled. I'm sitting here with some of my closest friends and some really dynamic, amazing women that are in the Texas Hill Country, making a difference in the wine scene. And I'd like to say these are some women that are owning it in Texas Hill Country wine. So we talked before with female winemakers, and today we're going to hear from women who did not want to become winemakers, but they wanted to own a wine business. So we kind of have different backgrounds and different business models that are represented today. And we'll have a chance at the end for you guys to ask some questions. So be thinking about what you always wanted to know when it comes to opening a wine business. So I'd like to first just ask each of you ladies to introduce yourself. You know, who are you? What is your wine business? And when did you open? And then we'll later open the door into all of the dirty details.
So, hello, I'm Melissa Humphreys. We opened Six Twist, our champagne and sparkling wine lounge, almost 2 years ago. It was about 3.5 to 4 years in the making to get this build out. And about 6 months ago, we purchased Ocotillo Wine Bar, and it has more of a slant on global versus Texas curation and chocolate. We do have a few tapas on the menu, but collectively, we also have an import and distribution business. So that is my delve into the wine world, even against her recommendations.
Hi, I am Melissa Watley, Watley Wines, and we have been officially open with our tasting room for 2.5 months. So I'm definitely the youngest, I think, business on the panel today. We started
nice
making
save
wine
there.
Into it.
Nice save.
Yeah.
The youngest.
Business. And we started making wine in 21 and planted our vineyard in 21.
Good afternoon. I'm Ross-Ann Mitrione, and we own Michael Ross Winery. So we actually opened, cut incorporated, so to speak, in 2018. That's when we started planting our grapes up in the High Plains. And then we opened our tasting room down here in Fredericksburg in 2021 or 2023. So we've been there almost 2 years, August 25th.
Renee Mills, Rustic Spur Vineyards. We started out planting a vineyard over in the Stonewall area in 2013. Added a little bit in 2018. Had a tasting room in town for a short time, but now we do appointment-only tastings at the vineyard.
Great. So every one of you said we, and I'm saying y'all are the women owning it in Texas wine. Now, I knew that they were all we's. So each one of you started your wine business with your husband. It was a family decision. You went into it together. But I feel like for every one of your brands, it is you ladies who are the face of the brand. You're the ones that are there. You're the ones the customers get to know and ask for personally. So I don't want to discount the importance of a partnership with your partner. But I do think it's important to note the similarities that it is all you women who are known as the face of your brand. So we're going to delve a little more into that, but still leaning into the we, or maybe it's you. Tell us the aha moment, if there was one, that made you think, I want to get in the wine industry. I want to own a wine business. What was that moment?
Well, for me personally, I think it was my husband and I always traveling together. So I had very few wine experiences that he wasn't a part of. It didn't take long for us to move into the Fredericksburg area almost 8 years ago, to decide that we thoroughly were wine enthusiasts, but let's take a deeper dive. Let's learn more. The relationships were made together. So he and I were pursuing it together, and it was something that we could do together. We explored opening the Champagne Lounge first, and my husband began to move towards more all-inclusive wine education. I went straight to Champagne. And so when we talk about that and I think I've mentioned this to Amy before, when I talk about wine and different varietals, they're like meeting people. And so when we look at the varietals of my husband and myself, he's Pinot Noir. He's very structured, bold. He keeps the lights on and the bills paid. I'm Chardonnay. I bring the finesse to the picture. And so I think it makes a well-balanced wine and a business endeavor. So that's kind of a little nutshell.
I love it. I have a friend who's a grower, Madonna Phillips. If you're listening, I'm shouting out to you. Phillips Vineyard outside of Brownfield in the High Plains. When we first met them and walked through their vineyard, she introduced the grapes to me with their personalities and talking about the grapes on the vine having personality. And I believe it was Mourvedre that she said was like the party animal, like because it grows so vigorously. It has such a big canopy. So you kind of just did the opposite, which I think is adorable. So thanks.
We have another story to that too.
So I would say the aha moment for me personally came in maybe two waves. The first wave of aha moment with wine itself was when I was 21, and I started where I was working with food, and I had grew up with a passion for food, and then realized that taste and passion transferred into wine. And I kind of started getting into it a little bit then, and then went into a completely different career in the nonprofit industry for 16 years. And my husband and I were sitting on the real aha moment for Watley Wines. My husband and I were sitting on our front porch, and the joke is we both remember the opposite. We were watching the sunset over our field, and we both remember turning to each other, or we both remember the other person going, hey, we could plant that with grapes. We give each other the credit for that. But we were sitting there, and as the sun was setting, and we just decided that why not? We have a beautiful property in the hill country, in wine country, and I'd already had that passion for wine. And so we planted the vineyard, and then the vineyard grew into, well, let's start making wine and earlier. And it's just kind of grown from there.
Yeah, and I don't think ours was a moment. It was a journey. And so in 2013, my oldest left for college, and we had two right behind her. And so we were like, okay, what do we want to do? Right? What does our second half look like? And we both had big corporate jobs. I spent 30 years in corporate America. I won't give you my age, but older than you. So we But we had a lot of dinners. We went to a lot of places, right? And when you're the top person at the table, you get the menu because you're paying the bill, right? To be able to do the wines. And so we both were having those experiences as our careers grew. And we were both in large jobs. And so we got to experience wine and really fell in love with it. And so then when we were on vacation, we would go to wineries and we would go to wine regions, and we kind of really just loved wine. And so when we were trying to decide what do we want phase 2 to look like, and we decided we wanted to leave corporate America, we honestly tried everything we could not to do the wine industry because of what everybody tells you. We're like, longest ramp up. If we do this, it's going to be grape first. We didn't want to do some of the other models. We just felt it was important that if we were going to make something, that we grew it, we made it, and then we would sell it, and our name would be on it, and we would stand behind it. And so, we knew that was going to be expensive. We knew that was a really long ramp up. And so we tried really hard to come up with other ideas, but we both just kept getting pulled back to wine. We love wine. We both have really strong personalities. So we also needed different lanes where he really loves the science and the enology part. And I have a passion for the consumer experience. My background's in sales and marketing. And so that's really where my passion lies, which is, one of the reasons my husband still works. When you start a new business, it takes a while for it to stand up. So he works full time. Still part of the decision making behind it. But for us, it was really kind of this journey of, do we really want to do that? And that took from, 2013 to 2017 for us to kind of decide, okay, this is really what we want to do. So, long-winded answer to a simple question, but it was a long-winded answer to get to.
You should be in the room when someone asks me what I do.
Yeah.
It takes me 15 minutes. Yeah, I can't. Yeah. Renee, you and Jim have somewhat of a similar story in that you were looking at what to do next because the chickens were leaving the coop.
What to do next? I was a stay-at-home mom for many years. My husband was in the corporate world, and they were approaching senior in high school. And so we had been to different wine regions, weren't wine drinkers, and became wine drinkers. But our side of it came from, we both have a heritage of family farming and ranching in our backgrounds. I grew up on cotton farm outside of Lubbock, and it was time to get back to the dirt. And it took 2 years for our realtor to realize that we were looking for the right dirt. We weren't looking for the hunt and lease. But it was... God called me out in the vineyard because that's where he needed me. And then it's also our midlife crisis. But the midlife crisis costs more than a red Corvette. And it's also a dormant dream. My dad is a cotton farmer on the South Plains, which the wine industry calls it the Texas High Plains. I tried to convince him to plant grapes in the late 70s when all that was getting started, and he said, no, I don't know how to grow grapes, and I don't like wine. So we call that my dormant dream, that it lay dormant for about 30 years and came alive. So that's where we are. And then in the process, our youngest daughter came along for the ride. She got her master's degree at Texas Tech as viticulture, and has helped us along the way for just about every step of the way.
And a shout out to Shara, because she just had a baby, just turned 1 month old. She would be here today if not for the baby needing attention at home. But she's a really dynamic person who I hope will come speak with us when we talk about growers. So I'm going to pick on you a little bit, Renee, because your story's a little bit different from the rest of the ladies. You guys wanted the vineyard first, and you didn't intend to have a wine label.
No.
But if I remember your story right, when those grapes were on a flatbed in picking bins leaving your property, you got sad. You were not happy that you didn't have a part in the end of the story of that vintage.
I had to follow the babies to the winery. I wanted to make sure they got taken care of.
And I think that's sweet, but it also is a testament to how hard it is to grow grapes, and especially if they're in your front yard, and you're physically touching them and caring for them every day the way you are.
And then finally, when it came time to put wine in a bottle, because farming just wasn't the most economical way to go at it. So it was time to put something in a bottle. And when you're on bottling day,
it's the best day ever.
That's a good day. I mean, you get to see your label go on a bottle. You get to see the wine go in the bottle, and to know that your hands have touched every vine at least once during that season made all the difference.
My hands have touched some of those vines too.
So did you.
So does anyone have a little glimpse into kind of what is the most rewarding part of doing this? Like when you think about taking this journey, when you think about the expense, when you think about the physical hardship of building up your wine brand, is there something that really stands out for each of you as being rewarding and making it worth it?
I'll go. So for me, it's the joy. So, we all have days where the tasting room is not buzzing, right? But on the days where you come out and the tasting room is full, it's buzzing, and people are enjoying your wine. They're doing it the way it's designed to be done, with friends and family, and there's laughter, and there's just like this spirit that exists in the tasting room. That's the moment where I go out and I go, it's great when you have a consumer come tell you, hey, I only drink California wine, or go, oh my gosh, this is great. This is Texas wine. So those are like the little moments along the way. But I think to me, it's when I come out and the tasting room just has this, I don't even know how to describe the right word. So I just kind of put joy on it, but it kind of has this feeling where it's alive and it's full, and it has a vibrancy that you're like, okay, we're doing the right thing. This is what we wanted to create. We wanted
to
let wine
see
be
what you envisioned 8, 9, 10 years ago before you ever had the tasting room, right?
Yeah, and the wine is the conduit, right, to create those life experiences and those memories with your family and friends.
Yeah, I love it. Melissa?
Yeah, so I have a very specific story in my head, and try not to cry. But it's pretty much right off of what she said, that why we do what we do. Each one of our wines is a story and a testimony. And so our whole goal is to bring that relational aspect, and exactly what you said, to come out and see people and see them being relational and just growing in who they are and who they came with. And the most rewarding moment that I had was our very first tour group that showed up. And I was a little nervous because with us having that Christian element to it, I didn't know what they were going to think about it. And they come off and they're very quiet and they're sitting there, and and I'm like, okay, I'm failing, right? I'm like, this is totally not what I had in my head, and I've been in that world for years and I know better, but still it was the wine industry and it was brand new and we're all in. And so I was in my head. And then one of them said, well, let me tell you why we're here. And it was because they were celebrating one of their friends that they lost. And they were a little sad because they were celebrating, and she had been trying to get them together to come. And they had lost her breast cancer. And kind of the whole reason we started a winery was the vision that I had over one glass, because I lost my cousin and best friend. And our victory is kind of our story for that. And so for the Lord to have the very first group come in, and it's like I knew what to do, because I had told my cousin that her first trip here, her first girls' trip, was hers, and I wasn't able to do that. So a couple friends of us, we got together and we did exactly what these girls were doing, and we walked around everywhere and had an empty glass. And everywhere we went, we had a glass for her. So I knew exactly what to do. I went and got an empty flight, and they had sat and accidentally left one chair empty. And so I left this empty flight right in front of that chair, and we just had this moment together, and it just was so far the most rewarding moment that I've had in the tasting room, because I knew the Lord sent us exactly who we needed. And he was just telling me to trust what we're doing and trust the journey. And it was just really beautiful, and it was exactly what I needed.
It's a great story, but it also makes me think that there's a lesson there for everybody, because you initially thought you were failing. And I think that's a very common, not just for women, but it's a very common feeling, is if you're not getting the reaction you expect, you think it's your fault. And sometimes it's just the situation, but you knew enough to still try your hardest. But now maybe hopefully the next time you have a group that isn't giving you that buzz and that exciting feeling, you won't go into your own head and think that it's because of you. And I think that's a good lesson for everybody. Remember that each of us is living our own lives, dealing with our own struggles. So maybe their reason for being there is different than what you thought it was.
And it turned out to be the most beautiful thing that my most rewarding, just the most amazing thing that I got to be a part of.
And imagine you're only 2.5 months in. Imagine what's still to come, right?
Can't wait.
Do you have a story, Renee? Maybe even from when you guys owned Vintner's Hideaway. So I'm going to segue here real quick. After they started the brand Rustic Spur and had wine made for their own label, they felt like they really needed a place to sell said wine, but they didn't have enough to really warrant having a tasting room of their own. So they opened this really lovely spot just a block off of Main in Fredericksburg, and it was called Vintner's Hideaway, and they featured only wines made by small Texas producers. So it became a good spot for locals and folks to just sit down and taste what was new. And she did a good job of bringing in wines from outside of the Hill Country, from other parts of Texas. But I wonder if you've got a story related to that tasting space or even to the vineyard itself.
I think that story revolves around a group of people that showed up every Thursday afternoon. That was my Thursday afternoon group. I loved serving them. They were wine club members, and that around that evolved a potluck dinner that we had once a month. That was a lot of fun. We would revolve that around a theme, and it felt like it was good fellowship.
Yeah, you built a community within your people in your tasting space.
Yes.
I think that's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. Anything come to mind?
I would love to share. So our first venture was Six Twist. And if anyone knows the name, it's always the number of times you twist the cage to open a bottle of champagne or sparkling wine. So one of the things that we got dialed in for our hospitality, just to help people recall our brand, was when we open a new bottle with guests, we have them think of 6 things they're feeling gratitude for. And we do a little countdown with them. And I typically would ask them hold their thoughts in their heart. And we just would send that to the stars, right? I cannot begin to tell you, and I may cry too, like Melissa, how many times, the things they would speak out loud. We celebrated lives, marriages, proposals, engagement, birthdays, recovery from cancer. I wound up crying so many times at the table with groups of people simply from doing a twist. And then it just opened up this relationship and hospitality of people that were lifelong customers. I felt like I had a thread into the memories that they were making. And I think the impact that had on me, in a strong way, was every single person coming in, whether they shared that gratitude with me or not. I was part of some reason they came in to celebrate, and that's bubbles, everyone's celebrating. But it became very profound, and I need to make this experience as special as it can be, because you never know. And people would just open up their hearts in a moment that maybe they were just stopping in, but when they took a moment to pause and think of what they were feeling gratitude for and what they were celebrating, it was just heartfelt. So next time you open a bottle, count down and think of those 6 things.
I love that. And because I know you so well, I never do that with you anymore. And we're going to change that the next time I come in.
We'll have our bench session, and then we'll be grateful.
It. I'm sitting here thinking, not to pick on beer drinkers, but I don't know that anyone can say they've had this type of experience at a beer garden, But maybe it's more fair to say over a glass of milk, right? So that's one of the things I love about wine is that relational component, that community, that just connection that I think wine is a little bit unique in drawing people together, and milk just doesn't do that. So I'm curious if any of you ladies have any thoughts on mentorship, if you had a mentor that really has helped you get to this point or even helped you early on. I'm kind of thinking in the realm of, okay, if there's someone listening today who thinks they want to do what you guys are doing, what you gals are doing, how important do you think mentorship is in reaching your goals of owning a wine brand? Anything come to mind?
Absolutely.
You're going to point at me, aren't you?
I'm going to point right at this one right here. So I think it all started opening a bottle of 99 Dom Perignon, sitting at the table with you and Benji, and we had drawn out a list of things that we wanted to create. And she told us every reason plus a few hundred more of why we shouldn't. Things that we needed to think through. And she has been such an inspiration and go-to in positive, like even though she gave us guidance and told us the pitfalls and the things to look for, you were nothing but supportive.
Yeah.
You let us pursue that on our own. So I'm just going to sit here and cry all day.
You can't teach someone a lesson.
And I think I would suggest finding a person that mostly resembles like what your passion and your goals are, people that have walked that path before, and step in and walk closely with them because they're open to sharing, especially if they're dear friends who have exceeded your dreams even. So
you're sweet. Sure. Thank you for that. Do you have anything, Melissa?
Well, I'd say kind of our story getting in, not that it was an accident. I mean, obviously we sat there and we wanted to plant the grapes, but we had this long-term plan, and the building that our tasting room is in wasn't available when we first started all of this, and all of a sudden it became available, which kind of bumped up our timeline. And so we just kind of ended up there before we realized we were there. So we were kind of already in the trenches, I think, when I was looking for mentors, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I didn't necessarily seek any out on the front end because it wasn't something we were intentionally going into. But I think what I can say is that the Lord has really provided so many people. I mean, we're coming up on like next week being here for a year full time. And, I was in Alabama my entire life before that, 41 years. Not that I should say that, but so my entire life. And so since we've moved here, we have been welcomed and embraced and lifted up like none other. And I don't feel like I go anywhere and it's competition. I feel like I go anywhere and ask a question, and everyone has helped us, from you, Amy, to Kathy sitting out there has truly, I didn't know, I don't like branding myself or anything like that. And so I've realized part of this is that, and we have to embrace that we do have gifts and we do have things that we can share, and having confidence in that we have things that we can share and that people want to share that with us, and that's okay. And so I've had so many people and women in our community, and Dane and Mackenzie, just so many people who have just taken us from the trenches and just brought us up. You and Andre, everybody that's just been so kind to build us up and make us feel welcome and a part of this community. And so I'm just thankful for that. And so if you find yourself in the trenches, look around for people who want to help you out. And if you're, wanting to get in, it's probably better to find someone to help on the front end.
Yeah. So I think for us, it was not one person. It was a slate of people, depending on where we were in our journey. So my husband's a military kid, and I'm from Florida, so I grew up on the beach, right? We decide we want to plant grapes. A tractor shows up. We're like, guy rolls it off the back, like, okay, here you go. We're like, no. How does this work? How do you turn on a tractor? How do you do implements? How does all this work? And so there's a gentleman, Peter Leckman, who is in the High Plains, who ran our vineyard for 7 years, and he was great, right? He answered all of our questions from, everything from how many wells do you need to, we have gophers up here. What do you do for gophers? No, that is not a joke. We have gophers in the high plains. But, so he was really instrumental on the vineyard side from the beginning. And then, as we moved into opening the winery and what we needed to do, there were several different people kind of along the way that we met. I'm very good friends with a couple of wine writers out of Dallas that brought us down here before, they were appalled. We would come down and never introduce ourselves. We just wanted to kind of be a fly on the wall and watch the way the process worked. And they were like, no, you have to know people. So, we kind of did a tour with them because they knew a bunch of people and introduced us. And, so I think it's knowing what you need and being open to the people around you that are willing to help and have the skill set and specific knowledge, right? What we needed for help in the vineyard looked very different from the build out of a tasting room or building a production facility. So that we could do that, right? One of the reasons we loved hiring the winemaker we did was we were like, okay, here are the plans for the building. Now change them. I don't want to make all these mistakes again, right? Like fix it. And so he changed some of the plans and got to build his dream cellar, right? And so he designed it from ground up and hopefully avoided several of the mistakes that, he had watched other people make. So we have really different people along our journey that have helped us. And I think that, in some cases you have people who understand the whole process, but in a lot of times you have subject matter experts that help you when you need it. And, finding those people and acknowledging their contributions is an important part of your journey.
I love it. It does take a village sometimes.
Yeah.
Renee?
Well, for us, it was starting out as growers, and we did the education. I did the 2-year online certification course through Texas Tech for viticulture, and along the way, we met John Ravenberg, and he came on and helped us tremendously, especially during those early growing years. And then it turned out that he's our winemaker, but also along the way. My daughter comes along after finishing college, and she's doing other things and helping us too, and she's just got a good sense about her that she's also a mentor.
I love that. That's so sweet. I think I'm gonna cry. We're all gonna cry. Shara's awesome, but so is your other daughter. I'm just gonna say Leah's great too.
Yes.
But I think that's really sweet that you're willing to learn from your child, because not everyone has the capacity to acknowledge that they could do so. So I think that's sweet. Okay, so we're gonna get away from the emotion for just a minute. I'm curious about kind of your challenges. If y'all want to be a little bit open with us and share 1 or 2 challenges that you've had in the growth of your brand. And it may be specific to Texas or Central Texas, or it may just be wine related, business related. Can you think of anything, Renee?
Wine related or growing related?
Both.
Growing related. It's just the pureness of being out there, battling weather, just all the things. It's farming. At the end of the day, it's farming, and that's what you deal with. Like last year in April, we got the big bad hailstorm that we'd never had before, and it took every bit of our fruit. So you just move on from that, and you nurture those vines back to health, and you just kind of start over again. But I think of your Albarino. That was the last grape that they planted, and it's a small 3 rows. Oh, it's 4. It's 8.
Oh, it's a small amount of the vineyard, and these vines just didn't want to grow. They didn't want to grow up and develop and evolve and make grapes. And Shara was out there ready to rip them up because she was so upset. And that was 4th leaf. Mm-hmm. And I was out there with, Bryce was with me, yes, and we were helping in the vineyard. And we said real sweet things to every vine as we're pruning and tying down. And we were like, no, just give them one more chance. Like, you can't, it doesn't do you any good to cut them up, rip them out now. You're not going to replant right now. So just like give them one. And we said sweet things and we stroked that. You're such a beautiful little Albarino. You're going to make beautiful wine one day. And sure enough, it produced that year. Now, I'm not saying that had anything to do with me, but it was such a frustrating situation to be in. They sent samples back to the nursery trying to prove that something was genetically wrong with these vines, and it wasn't. And sometimes just Mother Nature's a bitch. And and that is something that every grower has to deal with, but every wine brand has to deal with it, because even if you're not growing your own grapes, or you're growing your own grapes but they're not mature yet, you still have to deal with what Mother Nature's dealing out, right? Anything come to mind, Roxanne?
And for those of us who are recovering control freaks, not being able to control Mother Nature is very challenging.
Why do you think I don't grow grapes?
Well, and I was about to say,
just listen.
Yeah, so we have a 4th leaf Albarino. If you want to come do that, because it's doing the same thing right now.
Okay.
And my other half is ready to rip it out, and I'm saying it needs a little bit more time. Okay. So I'm resonating with you more than you realize. That's what all the giggles were for, and the looks as you were talking. It was nothing against that, but I feel you. And so if that's a service that you contract, then you may have just signed yourself up.
Vine whisperer.
Add it to your list.
Add it to my list, yeah. And Texas Albarino can be such a beautiful wine, but it is so much more difficult than any of us thought in Texas, because the logic of it is that we're so similar to where it thrives in Spain that it should be a no-brainer for us. But I don't know. I don't know if it's the rootstock or the clone, but that's a whole nother episode. Sorry. Do you have anything that pops to mind on your challenges? I know you're coming to it from a different...
My perspective is so unique, but my heart and love and admiration to all these growers and these women who are the faces of the brand and everything they've created. I have the blessing, the gift, and the luxury to pour their stories. And so there's something that's so very exciting about being able to pour wine, explain the challenges as well as the beauty of what they've all experienced and gone through, and see people just kind of fall into that story. And the appreciation grows for the wine. If I'm pouring something and I say this vineyard in particular suffered X plight and they lost all of their vines this year. This was their next release, and they're just, oh my goodness. And I don't think the consumer on an everyday basis in a restaurant is actually thinking about that, thinking about how tremendous the impact of Mother Nature and God and weather and all of the powers, genetics on a vine can be. And so for me, I get to share those challenges more than actually experience them. So complete admiration for you guys.
And I have one more, if I could add too.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people also don't think about just the investment that goes into that and time and all of that. Because if you think about our retail stores, the example I like to give, you could get inventory in 2 weeks, or you could get inventory in 6 months, even if you're planning a season ahead or, something like that. But when you're in the tasting business and the wine business, you're planning, 2 to 5 years out, depending on how long you want to age your wines. And so right now, for us, it's okay, where are we going to be in 5 years? That I think is a challenge that we don't necessarily talk about. And then too, for us, trying to keep it family owned and not have to reach out for all these investors and things like that is hard. It's a challenge to have inventory that you're pouring into for years before you're able to share it with anybody.
Yeah.
So for anyone who doesn't know, the old joke is if you want to make $1 million in the wine business, you've got to start with 5 million. So that's not an accurate number for today. It's probably higher, but the gist of it is that if you're going to build a wine brand, you're going to start out losing money for several years, and you've got to be financially and emotionally able to do that. So this is a hard business that you ladies chose to jump in on. So tell me if you knew then what you know now, is there something specific that jumps to mind that you would have done differently in starting your brand?
I think we're to ask me again in 2 years.
Okay.
Because we're still in the trenches and we still have to make it work. And so I can't think like that.
Stay positive. It's okay.
Yes. So ask me again in 2 years.
Okay. Can you think of anything, Roxanne?
Yeah, I think for me, it would be more about the physical structure, right? So one of the challenges when you go to build a tasting room is, you want it big enough so that, like for me as a consumer, I'm kind of a wimp. I want a big indoor space because it's either too hot or too cold for me to sit outside half the time. So, we wanted a big inside space. Well, you're not going to fill that right away, right? The other thing is, a couple of things that we didn't do correctly. I didn't count on enough storage space. So the back stock of all the boxes fill our offices, right? So around our conference table, there are white wine boxes everywhere. And we had to put a little she shed in the back to do all the extra merchandise. Where do the t-shirts go? Where do the, extra wine glasses go? We have a container back behind the equipment barn that I got spray foamed, that's where all the Christmas decorations go. That's where all the extra wine glasses, because by the way, you usually buy those in pallets. So,
and you break a few,
right? So you need all this stuff. So we have extra storage places all over the place. So I think I kind of needed a separate building for that to double the space. Not that I could have afforded that part, but, I think for us, it's more the logistics of the operation. And we had never worked in a winery. I had attended and visited lots and lots and lots of them.
We call that market research.
Yes, I had done that. But, there were some truly operational things that I was like, oh, I didn't really think that I needed a second kitchen for backstock.
And when she says wine boxes, she doesn't mean those really sexy wooden boxes that the French wines come in. She's talking about the white cardboard case boxes that are like you always have too many and then you never have enough, right?
Right.
Like boxes is a big component of the wine world that no one thinks about.
Well, even on the production side, right? So the storage, right? So we have some of it up there and some of it is at Gore Storage and cold storage because between the barrels and the tanks and the finished goods that are all sitting there, you start to run out of room as you're, got stuff in barrel for 3 years. So you're like, okay, boxes have to go somewhere else. So it's not easy to go, oh, let me just run up the hill and grab that, right? Like it's an operational logistics kind of thing that you kind of have to work through. And the other challenge I would say for the Texas wine industry, it's not as much in California because California is so much more reservation driven. Like people have reservations and spots. In Texas, you have a lot of walk-in traffic, right? Like your reservation, at least in where we are in our phase. So you guys might be different, but reservations only account for about 10% of the business that we get, right? So that's really hard from a staffing perspective to figure out what that's going to look like. And even if you are new, right? Like, so we're just finishing year 2. You have a little bit of history, but okay, well, July 4th got rained out this year. So that won't help me for next year because we had to shut down. And, it was a beautiful day. It was, Easter fell on a different time this year. So, when you try to estimate on what you think your traffic's going to be, that's really challenging in a business model that is so fluid and that just happens to show up or doesn't show up, right? Mm-hmm. And it has, staffing, costing, there's lots of implications on that, which, if you study, when you take classes and stuff, most of the models are based off of California when you go to school. And that's not their model. So that's never part of any of the kind of economic discussions that occur. And it's a real challenge. If anybody has the clue, I'm more than open to figuring out how to do that.
Well, and would I be right in saying that that's part of the reason that each of you is the face of the brand, because you physically have to be there to pinch hit when you have a ton of walk-ins and you don't have enough staff to cover it? You've got to step in and be the face and be the server, even though you were back there doing bookkeeping and paying bills. I think that's part of the challenge in the wine industry is that I know several people in the industry who thought that they could just open their doors and hire staff and step away and be an absentee owner. And I don't see that model working almost ever with the Texas wineries that I know intimately. So I think that's part too. Of
I think it's true with that piece, but I also think when you're a boutique winery, people, that's part of the allure of it, right? Like people want that personalization and that connectivity and understanding the owner. And otherwise they can go to a big operation and not see anybody, right? And it's like go into Disneyland, right? You can, some of the big ones in California, right? But being involved in talking to your customers, that matters to our consumer.
I have a comment on that because when we first opened, I didn't want to do reservations unless it was our larger rooms for larger groups that are having private events. I started to find that if there was a couple or a family or a group traveling together, I was not going to walk up and say, I know you're having a great time. You've spent $2,000 on wine. You got to get up. You got someone else coming in. Where it likely might have been a group of 6 wanting to split a flight. So it's something that's so challenging to navigate staffing. And being on Main Street, you think, oh, we're just going to have so many walk-ins. And
that's my perception of your world. There's a line out the door.
No, we're like, where are they now? Where are they? So our busyness doesn't really start on Main Street until the wineries are closing on the wine trail. But I'm also still very strong on I will not accept reservations for a couch. Like, no. If you want to sit there for 4 hours, make beautiful memories, have wonderful wines, let me share stories, pour stories, then so be it. But if I have to turn people away, but I'm not telling someone they have to leave.
Because there's a reservation coming in.
Exactly.
Yeah. I like that. You had something else, Melissa.
I was just going to kind of comment on the us being the face. And I think part of that, to your point, kind of made me think about it is I think as women, we have passions, whether they're dormant passions or different things. And then when we're inspired by something, that passion just comes out and it's bold and it's transferable. And so I think, my husband does a great job of selling wine, but when I get up there, I think as I've been thinking through what the difference is there, like it's the passion that comes out and maybe how I speak and how the wine goes with the food and the food goes with the wine and how proud I am to share that. And to share those and to, like somebody said earlier, watch that melt in. And so I think that naturally as women does make us a focal point because that passion that we have comes out in what we do.
I like that. Mm-hmm. You probably forgot the question now, Renee, because we kind of segued. But I was asking about, if you knew then what you know now, is there anything you would have done differently? And this could be with the Vineyard or the brand?
The Vineyard, no. We would have done it. But tasting room is a total different ballgame.
Yeah.
And navigating a business like that without having any knowledge of it, you're just going as you can. I think now there are wine business education opportunities out there that weren't out there in 2013, 2018 when we opened Tasting Room. I think I would have gone that route first as I did my growing education.
Yeah. And maybe that's where the mentorship could have helped too. If you had had not just someone to help you in the vineyard, but someone to help you navigate the business side of the wine business, that could have helped. Is there anything specific that you each can think of that sets your brand apart from every other wine business in the Hill Country? Because we have a few here.
I'll go first for that. And I want to start with how, even with what I'm about to say, how similar I have felt just on this panel with what we're all speaking. And, and I love that. And it's making me so just warm and fuzzy inside.
Don't cry again.
I'm not, I promise. I apologize for that. But no, I think, what makes us unique is we really want to bring that relational aspect. And it's the fact that each one of our bottles is a story and a testimony. And each one is a black and white picture with a pop of color in the back is a story or a testimony or something uplifting and encouraging. I've been called since I was young a Hallmark card. And so I just decided, I guess, to start putting that on a wine label.
I love it.
Why not? And so, we are very bold in the fact that we have a painting of the Last Supper in our tasting room, and we talk about our faith, and we're bold in that. And I think that's one of the things that sets us apart, that makes us different. But again, it's amazing how unified I feel like I have felt in that on this particular panel, and just the stories and the relational aspect of each one of you, why you're doing what you're doing. And so for each of you, I just want to say I'm thankful to hear that as well. And I'm glad there's more of us out there that have passion for that. But I think that's one of the things is we want to be relational and relatable, and not just, and two, we have flights instead of tastings. And so we want you to go back and forth. I think that sets us apart to be able to have individual glasses. And we want to be that quality over quantity. That's what I say.
And you've got a full kitchen, which is nice.
We do that I get to play in.
I know. Roxanne, I know what I think you should say, but.
Yeah. So there's a couple things I would say. One, we own vineyards in 2 different AVAs that we own and operate. But the thing I think we've become a little known for, if you will, is we call it the Worm Farm. So one of the things that was important to us when we went to open a business in the Hill Country was we wanted to have as little of an impact on the community, natural resources, as we possibly could. So we invested and partnered with a company out of California called Biofiltro, and they have a system set up that allows us to basically all naturally clean the water that is used in the winemaking process. And it goes into, think of it as a giant fish tank filter, is kind of a layman's easy way to think about that. So it gets pulled out when, you're cleaning and, pressing, you get grape juice on the floor and it's going down the drains. It gets pumped into a tank, and then it goes through a couple filtration processes, and there are worms in there that help aerate it, right? So they're living worms in there and a bunch of wood chips. And so out of that process, it creates a healthy microbial environment, and the microbes are the things that actually clean the water. And then it gets pumped into holding tanks, and we reuse that in our irrigation. So we're kind of minimizing the amount of water that we waste and pull out of the ground for irrigation purposes. So it's kind of a full circle, and it's all natural, right? Because the worms and the microbial take care of that. And so, that's a big piece. I'm guessing that's what Amy was talking about, because we've done a couple things about the Worm Farm.
It is unique. Is there information on your website? Yeah.
Yes, it is.
There's information on their website. So michaelrosswinery.com. You can read about it and see some pictures. Is my article linked there?
I don't know. It's in the tasting room.
Shameless plug. I wrote an article for Rock and Vine about this for them.
I think it is. I think it's in the news section.
Okay.
But we have a big plaque in the tasting room.
Okay.
That it's put up with your article in it.
But it's really fascinating. And if you've never worked in a cellar, like as an average consumer, it's really hard to wrap your head around how much water is needed to make wine. Like it is an unbelievable amount. And this is one reason that so many wineries in California are having struggles right now, is because they have water issues. And that's a whole nother episode, I think. But that is something I think you guys really started out with, that conscientious thought about the environment and the natural resources. And that's not to say that every winery doesn't think about that, but you actually invested in something to to help mitigate what could be a problem down the road. So I think that's admirable. It's also a beautiful space. I mean,
thank you. Yeah. Well, and our tasting room is built into the hill too. So it's kind of semicircle. So our building tasting room physically looks different than a lot of people. Yeah. It's kind of our Italian piazza meets Texas Hill Country. So it's a semicircle with a little fountain in the middle.
And the 2 Vineyard locations can be really important when we talk about things like the hail that knocked out Rustic Spur. You know, you've got your own vineyard that you already know is being grown in the way you want, that your winemaker wants. So you've got more control on your end product, but you also have a lot of fun possibilities. You know, you can make a Tempranillo from the Hill Country and from the High Plains. You have 2 different SKUs, and you've got a nice conversation point in the tasting room. You know, there's a lot of fun.
Which is the plan for our Syrah and our Petite Syrah.
Oh, cool.
So we will, we have those planted in both locations. And so we will harvest for the first time in the Hill Country this year. So you know,
you can do that.
3 years from now, we'll be able to do that.
Try to remember that. Make a note in your iPhone.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add, Renee?
I think for where we are now, is we're appointment reservation only out of the Vineyard. And with that, we can spend one-on-one time with whoever makes a reservation, because only one group gets a reservation, because it's just me or Jim and I.
Yeah.
So,
and it's a true, you're in the vineyard, you know, the consumer is seeing what you're living day to day, and seeing the chickens and seeing the dogs, and, you know, sometimes the dogs are chasing the rabbits, and, you know, like the circle of life is just happening right before your eyes. And that's something that a lot of wineries in the area aren't giving that kind of vineyard experience. So I think that does make it unique. Did you have anything, Mel?
Most of the challenges that I hear, and I've touched on this earlier, so they are busy. They're in the vineyards. They're producing. They're growing. And I feel like I don't experience those challenges. And again, it allows me to be in that tasting room, pouring these wines, sharing these stories while they're busy making this beautiful product. So I can only, you know, give support and be that other hand of promotion, if you will, while they're busy doing all the very challenging work.
You've got a different set of challenges.
My challenges are mostly just people. And if I had a...
So I would say, you know, you're definitely wanting to carry some Texas wines and promote the Texas industry, but sometimes that's really hard to do because the wholesale price that the Texas winery has to charge to cover their expense is higher than the wholesale price for some other producers in other regions. And so it's harder for you to help tell their story and still make a profit to cover your own expenses. And I know that is a challenge because that's a challenge I've experienced. So I think that is a challenge in and of itself.
Right.
And then I'm going to poke a bear here, and I should have warned you about this. But there are plenty of folks in Texas that get their hackles up if you're selling anything but Texas wine. And in both Six Twist and Ocotillo, you carry Texas, but you're also showcasing other parts of the world. So how do you mitigate that positive relationship with the little bit of negativity that's still thrown your way?
I honestly don't find it to be a negative. I feel like I have a global collection, a global curation. And by putting them on the same stage, I'm saying Texas is beautiful quality, just like this beautiful Spanish. I have one, Pebble Rocks Giraldigo is one that I will pull out as my little secret weapon when someone says, I don't like Texas wine. And I just somehow get them busy doing other things, and I give them a little splash of that. And they're like, great, where's this from? And I immediately say, okay, no judgments. You know, you can go through and side by side. And most of the tasting rooms in the Hill Country, you don't get an opportunity to have a Texas Albarino like we were talking about, and maybe an Albarino from Spain. So I feel like that's where I get to bring this spotlight on Texas, is because I do have this side-by-side comparison. It does take a little extra spin on things sometimes because of pricing. But again, when you share the amount of effort it takes to grow grapes and make wine in Texas, it's quite different than other areas. So,
Yeah. Hail, floods.
Yeah, and
heat.
I'd love to add to that if I could.
Yeah.
Because I think, we started making wine in 21 and planted our vineyard in 21. And when we did that, I'm not going to lie, I had in my head hearing all of these things, we're going to be 100% Texas. Like, we're going to be 100% Texas, no doubt. And then we started looking for grapes. Nobody would give me grapes. It was 21. There was hail damage. There was freeze. There was all of these things. And I was able to get super blessed to get one varietal that was Texas because we were brand new. Now, I also say that to say that, 24 and even this year, people just starting out, there's a lot more Texas fruit available because we've had great growing year or better growing years, we'll put it that way. And that there are more people planting, therefore the abundancy is growing for more people to get into this industry if they're buying grapes and producing wine. I think just for maybe a little understanding, even from our side or where we were, I just knew in my mind I was going to be 100% Texas, but that was not possible for me. And so our very first vintage is majority California because those are the grapes that I could get. And then I think one of the most fun adventures, has been, I can't tell you how many years as well that we had contracts for XYZ or ABC, we'll say ABC in April, and they were wiped out over the summer and ended up picking up XYZ. And I feel like for us, the Lord gave us what we needed, not what we wanted. But there's, I think that when we're looking at judgment, there's just so many factors that are out of our control that, whether what, and maybe it's not transferable to what we wanted or what we thought we were going to do isn't necessarily what we were able to do.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a few more things to touch on, but I wanted to ask if anyone that's here today had any questions or comments for our panel. Anyone? Oh, go ahead, Tyler.
Uh-oh.
How's the Alliance?
Are you asking me? I don't grow Alliance.
Albarino. Yeah.
It's doing a whole lot better. 2 years ago was our first full harvest. Last year, a hailstorm got it, and this year the vines are loaded. But those grapes are what they call they're very small clusters. They're about this big, so you don't produce a lot of pounds or tons from the vines. But they are loaded this year, so we're blessed. You want? Well, not at this point.
That's funny. Anyone else have something? Okay, so I know a couple of you have side ventures. So Rustic Spur and Watley Wines both have Airbnbs on the property that are available. If you want to give a little shameless plug about that, I'm okay with it. And then I'd also like to know if there are any other little side hustles or any other, wine related thing that you're doing that helps promote your brand.
Yes, we have a little tiny house mobile home on our property that my oldest daughter and her husband added to our property in 2019. Very small. You can see the vineyard from there. We have a beautiful view of the Pedernales River Valley from the front of that. It's out in the open, but it's private, and we allow pets. So
it's nice.
Yeah, it's a nice little spot.
And it's on VRBO.
It's on Airbnb.
Airbnb under Rustic Spur.
It's under the Vineyard View at Rustic Spur is the name of it on Airbnb.
And you can see the ponies too.
Yes.
Shara's horses are out there.
Yes, the horses are still there.
So we bought our property in 2016 and it had an old original 1860s German homestead on it, and we restored that, and then we built a building right behind it to make it look like a living barn, like it was always there. And we took the original smoke shack, turned it into a grilling porch, and really tried to take all the history that was there and keep it there. And the farmstead, we call it Melissa's Farmstead, which I didn't like the name. I didn't want it named after me, but my husband was very sweet and said, we have 2 boys and one day it will be theirs and it will be named after their mother. And I was like, okay, you got me. And so our vines are planted on Melissa's farmstead. We do have that building. It's 4-bedroom king beds. 2 of them are masters and then 2 are Jack and Jill. So our kind of heart behind it is like couples retreat space where you can come and kind of have your own space, but be again with that relational camaraderie, family, couples come together and spend time together, because especially when you're in seasons when you have, kids at home, you don't get to do that as much. And so creating an opportunity to do that when you travel, I think is very important. So that's Melissa's farmstead. And you do get to watch the sunset over the vineyard that we planted on that porch. So it's very beautiful.
Love it. So, Melissa, you've got 6 Twists and now Ocotillo.
Yes. So,
and I want to interject that one thing that sets Ocotillo apart, if y'all haven't been there, they have the really cool wine dispensers that are installed on the walls. So your by the glass options are all lining the wall in a dispenser, and you can choose if you want a sample pour or a glass. And it's a fun way for people to be able to try stuff, especially if they aren't necessarily in the mood for the interaction, because sometimes they're not.
The wine stations are a self-piloted flight, if you will. And we currently have 16 that you can have a 1, 3, or a 6 ounce pour. And we're adding 4 additional sets. So we'll be 32 that you can taste through. Again, that global stage, I said, where I get to showcase Texas against other European wines. I currently have Texas intertwined with France and Spain and Portugal. And so it is such a rare opportunity without sitting down and having to experience an educational flight to go through and taste all of these different wines. And we switch them out periodically. And so it stays always interesting, always fun. We took it over about 5 or 6 months ago, and we're just having our ribbon cutting. We're just finally dialing in what our niche is going to be there with this global curation. And we also have a little chocolate component. And what's better than chocolate and wine? But we have a dessert bar, drinking chocolates, truffles. So 6 Twists has been open a couple of years. Now here we are with our new venture, Ocotillo, and we're part of the new market that's opening right behind us as well. And so lots of grab and go foods, very similar to a small Oakville grocer. If you've been to Napa and experienced that. So I think it's one-stop shopping, whether you want bubbles, still wine, European wines, Texas wines. I think we have it all now. So come and see me. We'll navigate some of their wines as well. One thing I would love to note is that I want to share that space that we have at Ocotillo. So anybody in the wine world producing, growing with a label, I would love to invite you to come and do a pop-up. And we do a tasting room takeover, typically on a Sunday. And we just open it up it's your space for the day. So it's quite fun.
And that whole courtyard area is a neat space to do bigger events in too, which is something
Harvey,
they've been
which
working
is
on.
the event space with Chef Ashley. So if you're looking for a place to host a wine dinner, it's fantastic.
May I add one more shameless plug?
Sure.
Sorry, I forgot one. So moving into this industry, kind of in between, I taught leadership and development and ran a nonprofit camp facility for 16 years. And so one of the things that we are going to start doing, which is very unique and awesome here soon, well, actually, if anyone's interested, we can start whenever I get the groups, but we're going to start doing some leadership development. I've done corporate leadership. We did all of our fire department back in Alabama. I've done college team. I've done all different types of leadership development. And so we're going to start offering that and then kind of end the day with like a wine and food pairing. And so it's a great opportunity for people to, come out, like especially from like San Antonio and Austin, come out for the day. You get to bring your corporate group. You get to go through some intensives together. that I'm also extremely passionate about. I love working with people and investing in people and making them better. And then end with some food and wine.
I love it. Roxanne, do you have any final thoughts you want to add?
Yeah, I'm just doing 2 vineyards in a tasting room. That's about as much as we can do. So hats off to the rest of you with all the multiple endeavors. So we've really just been, we have a food truck out there. So I wasn't brave enough to take on a full kitchen because I am not a cook. My husband cooks, amazing cook. We just, like I said, we're just really focused on kind of getting the winery stood up, but that includes 2 vineyards, a production facility, and a tasting room. And that's about as much
and drunk worms.
And drunk worms. And that's about as much as I can handle. So
I love it.
That's a lot.
Are you doing, I know we had a Women for Wine Sense event with you last year where you let us bring folks out to see the worm farm, but is that something that you do regularly or would you do for our guests who are here today?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've done several different special events for folks. We have one of the rooms that we call the barrel room. So there's barrels in there. They're filled with
Real
water,
creative.
for the record. They're real barrels, but they're filled with water because it's not temperature controlled and it would go bad unless we decide to put port in it, which we're thinking about. But we have that room fits about 40 people. So it's a nice event space with a door that you can kind of close. So we've done some special events there. We hosted a big women's retreat from Georgetown. So we had about 50 people. If you come on a day that we're not open, then we'll open special for those. And then we do wine dinners about once every 8 weeks or so, give or take. We kind of take off for the summer because people are off vacationing, not hanging out in Fredericksburg. But for the most part, we do it about every 8 weeks that we do a dinner. So we'll be doing one August 27th to celebrate our 2-year anniversary of the tasting room. Very excited.
I love it. Are tickets on your website?
Yes.
michaelrosswinery.com.
Yes. if you go to the events section, that will give you all the various things that we're doing. So we're doing a car show in November. We, do a People in Pups Halloween costume contest. So all the fun things that we do are all on the events tab. Music,
Great.
lineup, all of that.
Awesome. Any final comments from anybody before we wrap it up? I really appreciate y'all being here today. I especially appreciate you donating the wines. 100% of the proceeds from any wines y'all buy today will go to Kerr County Flood Relief.
And because I didn't get to bring wine, because I don't produce beautiful wines like these ladies, if you come into Ocotillo, I'm going to give you a free drinking chocolate.
I tried to get her to bring it here today, but that was really complicated. So you get to go see her to have your drinking chocolate. So thanks, Will, for letting us ladies take things over and make you be quiet there in the corner. I also want to thank the sponsors. So Texas Wine Lover or txwinelover.com, Old Vine Texas, and High Camp Flask. So thank you guys for supporting the podcast. And for those of you who are here today, be sure to check out the podcast. It is a free download. So WeKnowTexasVino.com, and you can click there to be able to get the last episode, which was 104. Oh, WeKnowTexasVino.wine. Sorry. Oops. And 104 was the last episode. And do you know which one this one is? Okay. So 2 weeks.
Ish.
That was a no. It'll be a month probably before this goes live, but be sure to look for it. And thanks for joining us. And thank you, ladies. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Amy,
Appreciate
for
it.
inviting us.
Yes, absolutely. It's been a pleasure.